Meatball sandwiches are great any time of the year, but especially in fall when you take a little bit of a different approach to making them. Makes them super easy, and that's using the slow cooker. Now, the meat we're going to be using today is a mixture. We've got 2 pounds of an 85-15 ground beef and 2 pounds of a 90-10 ground pork. If you aren't using those exact lean to fat ratios, don't worry about it. You might just generate a little bit more oil, but that's a trade-off sometimes you have to make, but I like using this ratio. Now, before we add our other things to this, I want to get this mixed together. Just kind of get the ground beef and ground pork to be friends before they get to meet Mr. Egg, Mr. Breadcrumb, and Mr. Spices. And we're going to be doing more mixing once we get our other ingredients in, so we don't have to get this a perfect 100% blend here. Just about like that. Now, if you don't like ground pork, you could use all ground beef. I've done that frequently. First up, we're going to add 3.5 teaspoons of kosher salt. It's a good, large amount of meat. You need a good amount of salt. We're also adding 1 teaspoon of a coarsely ground black pepper, 1 teaspoon of granulated garlic, 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika. We're also adding 2 eggs that have been lightly beaten. And I'm going to start with about half a cup of breadcrumbs. May end up using more, we'll see. This is one of those things that just need to adjust based upon how it feels. And we get in here and we mix. This is that important stage where you want to make sure everything gets really nicely mixed and incorporated. You don't want a big clump of seasoning in one spot. You want it evenly distributed. And I've heard so many things over the years where people say, oh, if you overmix your meat in the meatloaf or meatballs, it's going to be tough. I have never, ever, ever in over 45 years of cooking found that to be true. Now, I'm not saying you go to town and spend 2 hours doing this, but don't worry about that. It's never happened to me. I mean, maybe it's happened to you, but I think people worry too much about stuff like that when they're making meatballs and meatloaf and stuff. You know, just get it mixed as well as you need to. Don't worry. It's going to be great. It's feeling pretty good. A little wet, so I think we will add some more breadcrumbs here in a minute. But I just want to make sure I get all of our ingredients mixed as well as possible. I'm going to add the rest of my breadcrumbs here. So that's a full cup we've used. Now let's say you overdo it and add too much breadcrumbs where it's starting to feel a little bit dry. You can add a little milk, maybe a tablespoon at a time. In fact, one really great meatball recipe I made a long time ago called for using milk-soaked bread as the binder. Worked great. This is feeling really good. Just want to make sure we're all mixed here. This is where you get to get a little workout. Your forearms and your hands. That is looking, feeling, and yes, already smelling good. Let's go ahead and form our meatballs. So I have a tray here with some parchment paper on it. This is just to make cleanup easier. We're not going to be baking these ahead of time. We are actually going to be searing them in a pan just to get a little color on them before they go into the sauce. And I'm just going to eyeball these. I'm not really going to measure in terms of weight or anything, because what I want is I want a meatball that's a pretty good size because, and this doesn't always work, at the end, once they're done and we take them out to build these sandwiches, sometimes I like to cut them in half. Sometimes they're really too tender and they don't want to stay together, but about this size, which is what, about a tennis ball maybe? Something like that. It's really just sort of, gauge it by about that size. Doesn't have to be perfect, but roughly the same size does help. If you want, you could use an ice cream scoop or something like that to help measure out. I've done that in the past, works really well. But today we're going easy, we're just eyeballing it. Wonder how many we'll get. Now this exact same recipe for these meatballs you could use to make meatballs that you cook out on the grill, that you smoke, anything like that. Bake them in the oven, fry them in a pan. This is sort of a universal meatball recipe. Looks like we're going to end up with 11. Nice odd number there. All right, those are looking good. Let's get our slow cooker out here and build the sauce in it. All right, I have my slow cooker here and it is set on low and I have it set for 8 hours. Inside I have 2 29-ounce cans of tomato sauce. No salt added because we're going to be adding salt. First ingredient, 2 teaspoons of kosher salt, 2 tablespoons of dried oregano, 1 tablespoon of dried basil, half a tablespoon of dried parsley, half a teaspoon of red pepper flakes, 3 tablespoons of minced garlic, and 1 medium white onion that's been chopped, not super fine, not super huge. Get everything mixed in here. You're probably saying, that's going to be a tight fit with those meatballs. You are correct. I probably should get a bigger slow cooker, but I don't always need a big one. All right, let's give our meatballs a quick sear in a pan and get them in here. We're going to get our meatballs in here. Remember, these are not fully cooked. That was just to give them a little bit of color, a little bit of extra flavor on the outside. And they are going to be stacked on top of each other. We'll spoon a little sauce on the ones that are riding on top here. A little of our sauce on top of everybody. That's looking good. We're going to put the lid on here and probably going to come back in, let's say 4 hours. We'll just check them, see how they're doing. They may be fully cooked in 4 hours. That's totally normal. But I want this to go that full 8 to really let the flavor develop, not only in the meatballs, but in that sauce, because flavor from the meat is going to get into the sauce. Now, if you had a shorter amount of time, didn't have 8 hours, you could probably do high for 4 or 5 hours and it would work just fine. See you back here in about 4 hours. So we've been going just about 4 hours now. Let's go ahead and take a look. I did, at about the 2-hour mark, shift some of the meatballs around just so the ones on the bottom didn't get all that heat, move them to the top. It's smelling really good. Let's get a taste of some of our sauce right now, and we're just going to do a quick temp probe on the meatballs. That is looking good. First, want to get just a little taste here. Ooh, that is really nice. One of the great things about this method is when you're done and you've made your sandwiches, there's going to be some sauce left over. It's great for pasta. In fact, you could use these meatballs and this sauce for pasta. Now let's get a temp of our meatballs right here. So right down in the center there, you see we're at 150. So by the time we are at the 8-hour mark, everybody's going to be in that 165 range. And really, because we're using ground pork, you want to get to that 165. When it's not ground pork, a lot of times 145 will do fine, but for ground pork, you really want to get up there. All right, I'm going to get the lid back on here, let these keep going. When we come back at the end there at about that 8-hour mark, there might be 1 or 2 meatballs missing because I'm going to make a meatball sandwich in a couple hours for my son, so he's going to be the first taste tester before even I get to taste. See you back here in 4 hours. All right, our meatballs are done. I went ahead and cut 2 of them in half. I think we're only going to need about 1.5 to fit on my bread here. This is just a baguette that I sliced in half, toasted a little bit. Go ahead and see how we can fit here. Hope my bread doesn't tip over. Now, while these are still hot, I want to put some provolone cheese on top here. If they're not hot enough, you could throw these in the oven easily. But I'm also going to be putting some of our sauce on top here. And this is definitely hot. I think we'll get a little bit of meltage from this. A little bit down here. I'm going to put some basil leaves here, a couple of them. And some mild peppers. These are not very hot. Liking the looks of that. Let's get our top on here. There we have it, our slow cooker meatball sandwich. Let's dive in. So I have a fighting chance with this. I'm going to cut it in half. Cheers. Okay. I just said something a second ago that I would have had to bleep out. Wow, this is good. The flavor combination of the meatball and the sauce. The other things are good too, but just those two together, man, I think I nailed this. And as I mentioned before, that sauce is perfect for pasta. So if you have any left, which you probably will if you make this, use it for that. But whatever you do, take those meatballs, get them in a good piece of bread, and enjoy.